One of the most commonly asked questions I get when I start teaching design thinking from both students and people I speak to on the street is, what is design thinking anyway? So I thought I'd just put a little overview video together to help focus us on what the actual subject matter is. When things start to work, okay. So there is no one definition of what design thinking is. In fact, it's really hard to get a single definition of design, much less a definition of what thinking is. But we understand this concept of design intuitively. Maybe the first thing you thought about was creativity or art. But design is usually linked between both form and function. So design is about making change happen. Everyone who designs needs to devise a course of action that's aimed at changing existing situations into preferred ones. And if that's not a definition of a business outcome, I'm not quite sure what is. Over the next couple of slides, I've got a couple of my favourite definitions. This one is from Lucy Kimball. The opportunities for innovation are shaped by how and where we begin. Kimball says that design thinking is an approach to solving complex problems, innovating in uncertain times. It's not going to be an appropriate approach in every circumstance, and it may not be the only approach, even when it is appropriate. One of the things I love about an MBA degree is it is both broad and diverse as opposed to narrow and deep. So you will, over the course of your MBA or your MIB, be exposed to many different disciplines. Some of them will really take your fancy and you'll want to go deeper. Others you can't wait to leave the room. A MBA is a scholar of all things and potentially a master of none. Ultimately, doing an MBA gives you enough exposure to all of these ideas and concepts to help you navigate managing experts in each of those fields. And design thinking in many ways pulls all of that together because it helps you understand the form and the function and help you choose the right tool for the job. Design thinking is a decision attitude. So this is Richard Boland. He says, a decision attitude which assumes it is easy to come up with alternatives to consider but difficult to choose between them. And we'll go on to talk about wicked problems very shortly. The design attitude towards problem solving, in contrast, assumes that it's difficult to design a good alternative, but once you've developed a good one, the decision about which alternative to select becomes trivial. Ultimately, what that means is design thinking is about designing the right thing as opposed to getting the design right first time. It's about falling in love with your problem and making sure you're solving the right problem rather than making your solution fit. What I particularly love about design thinking is it's all about bringing creative and critical thinking together. Design thinkers use this kind of framework. We talk about viability, feasibility, and desirability. What design thinkers do is they look at all of the different stakeholders that are involved, they focus in on what the real problem is, and they know they haven't found the right solution until all of these circles, these concentric circles, converge. In other words, they're asking, do people want it? Do the stakeholders want it? Will they use it? Do they desire it? Do they need it? Even if they don't realise they desire it or they need it. Secondly, is it feasible? Can we actually do it? Can we make this technology work? Can we get people to do the things and make the behaviour changes that we need them to make? And then lastly, is it viable? Should we do it? And that tends to fall in two categories. Firstly, is it financial? Will it cost us less to do it than the amount of money we'll receive for doing it? But I think it's also, the viability question is also about sustainability and ethics. Should we do it? Is it right for the planet? Does it have a long-term benefit? Is it a good solution for people? Sometimes the best way to understand what design thinking is by thinking about what it's not. This picture here was taken a very long time ago in the UK, and in a silly way, it's been taken without showing all of the traffic. So this is a main road, and there's a lot of traffic going past. And you can see this path here. It's basically designed, and the gates there, to slow down bike riders. We can see why that's a desirable thing. There's a very busy road. Trust me, it's busy. And you don't want cyclists quickly running out or riding out onto that busy road without taking care. Is it a viable solution? Yeah, it looks pretty technically easy to manage. In fact, it's there. It looks pretty simple and possibly inexpensive. So from a viability and a feasibility angle, I think the bases are covered. But as the enlarged picture will show, ultimately it hasn't worked. You can see from the path here that cyclists are avoiding it. So there is clearly a design flaw in the way this solution is made, and design thinking hasn't been applied. So we can think of design thinking as a process as well. And the next, and really the rest of this little video, I'm just going to be showing you some of the models. The first of these is referred to usually as the Darden Business School model, and that's the model that we're going to be using most. You'll be using the online copy. Apologies for ducking out of frame, but it's based on this excellent book, which is really quite easy to read, that you have available to you in the library by Liedeke and Ogilvy, some of the original thinkers in this space. And I like looking at this model because it's really framed around questions. It asks us to start with what is the current situation, to think about and to go broad and think about what if it were different? What are the different options? Next, we go to what wows, which sounds like it's kind of rah-rah. I'm not sure that it's the best name, but I haven't thought of a better one. The what wows section is about bringing these fabulous divergent ideas and working out which ones are going to work for a client in a particular set of circumstances. And then coming back to actually what's working, co-creating and working with the client. Another really popular model is the British Design Council model, and RMIT works with this model regularly as well. So I'm going to show you that a lot. What I particularly like about this is it shows this idea of divergent thinking, starting with a problem concept and going out, coming back in again to really understand it, and then going out again to think about wild and crazy ideas, and then bringing them back in, converging back in to making sure that we get the right idea to solve the right problem. A very well-known model is the Stanford D School or IDEO model. You'll see this a lot. It, again, goes through similar steps. Start with understanding, then use empathy. In fact, empathy is so important, it focuses on it as a separate step in the process. Define what your real problem is, come up with new ideas, ideate, test those ideas. In fact, IDEO separates out prototyping, so making a particular type of test, a prototype test, which also helps us with thinking, and then testing to get it right. Google sprints, I draw a lot on their materials because these are used a lot in the real world. There's a fabulous book called The Design Sprint, which Google's own sprint process is designed around. You can see it mirrors the double diamond in a number of ways. This whole idea, again, of divergent thinking and convergent thinking. And the Sprints book, again, I'm pretty sure it's available online in our library, takes organizations through a 5-day rapid sprint process for creating ideas and solving business problems. Now, what's really interesting is while we've got all these different models, and just some are on the screen, actually many of them have quite a lot in common. They're just different ways of expressing this idea of a similar process, just using different labels. Each of them moves from developing an understanding of what is and what if, or discovering and defining what the problem is, into possible new ideas, new concepts, to shaping ideas into testable experiments, and then exploring their viability and feasibility in a broader use. So the development or the delivery phases. All of them also they look like a process, but all of them, when you dive deep, have this idea of iteration, of constantly going back and checking. So what we'll be doing as we work through the process is exploring the problem using the Darden model, and I can't wait to get stuck in with you. Thanks.